I'm Ocean Kenback. I go to Churchill High School. I'm a junior. I don't have future plans. I plan to go to college. Deja.
Sure. Hi, my name is Deja. I'm a senior at Wooten High School. As far as future plans, college again. Hopefully Spelman, that's what I'm looking at. But aside from college things, I'm president of MSP at my school, as well as a trained facilitator / trainer, sort of, for study circles. So
My name's Alice. I'm a senior. I want to go to college. I don't know where.
So, slavery in school I felt like it was kind of a very rushed topic because it was kind of awkward for the teacher and the rest of the students because I did go to a majority white middle school, so it's kind of just like one of those taboo things. It's just like, we know it happened, but let's not talk about it type of thing. But luckily, I did have a teacher who did explain it very well, and I felt like the other students did get a slight depth of it. Though it was a little awkward, as I said before, because being one of like the few minorities in the class, people just kind of look at you, kind of like, oh, and like students will say, "We're sorry." I'm just like, I don't want apologies. I just want you to learn. That way, in the future, other stuff like this doesn't happen. As far as at home, I can't really say I learned anything like too specific. It was more just general topics from like TV or any type of news that ended up coming to the house. But other than that, didn't really learn anything at home, as like my mom we're immigrants, so like we came over here, like there was nothing, like our background didn't have to really like do with slavery, but of course it affected us.
So, for me, I think similarly, but also very different. Our experiences are quite similar in the sense that so you went to MCPS for middle school? I did not. So I came from Frederick County before my freshman year of high school, and up until now, I grew up there. And so the basis of my slavery, I guess, or lack thereof, education, came from there. And I have two very strong, I guess, things that stick out in my mind when it came to learning about slavery, because I think for me, it was very much taboo, but it was almost as if the teachers that I grew up with, like in elementary and middle school, were very confident about what they had to say. And I think it all kind of came from the textbook and whatever it said there. Obviously, I'm a senior now, so I don't really remember everything from then, but as far as middle school, elementary school, the one experience that I have learning about it was in first grade, and I don't want to get into too much detail because it's not the whole point, but in first grade, my first grade teacher, she actually assigned me to the slave in a play that we did in class, and that was all I knew for my whole elementary experience. I didn't end up doing the play because my dad was like, "Oh no, you're not doing that," but that's all I remember from elementary school, and so obviously that's not the best way to get started, but, and then as far as middle school, one thing that sort of stands out to me is I believe it was 8th grade, I want to say. I remember one day, I don't remember exactly what we were learning about, but I know it was slavery in the sense that she took my whole class. She was like, "Okay, now get up and go stand in the corner." And so my whole class, I think it was pretty small. It wasn't that many of us. So we all kind of stood in the corner, and she took the trash can and took the bag out so it was empty and she wouldn't dump trash on us. But she was like, "If you were a slave, this is what being fed would look like." And she was pretending to dump food on all of us. And so that's kind of the extent of my slavery education. And so unfortunately, I'm not as educated as I would like to be about slavery. That's kind of a thing that I'm learning to do on my own.
I don't really remember it being very highlighted upon. I think my teacher really rushed the topic and stuff because I felt like it probably made him uncomfortable to talk about it, and it was kind of just something that you hear about every year you hear about it, but it's not something that we dove into or something that we really elaborated on or something that the teacher really asked the students how they felt or what their connections were or anything like that. It was just kind of oh, it's a topic that's there, okay, and then we moved on. And so I guess in that way I know maybe he wasn't trying to do it intentionally, but looking back after all these years, it kind of felt like kind of like, in a way, it's kind of disrespectful. Just kind of like, because it is an essential part of, the U.S. history, and even though people don't like that part, and a lot of people don't really agree with what happened, it is something that happened. You can't just dismiss it just because it makes you feel uncomfortable. So I would have loved to talk about it, and I know middle schoolers, like, their point of view and the way that they think, it's nowhere like close to how we think now. But I think it would be good if you would be open to talking to them about it, because I think there are a few students there who would want to talk about it, who feel that it's important, because even like right now, kids have access to technology in a way that I didn't have and that you guys probably didn't have. So whether or not it's better to talk about it with them in the classroom than for them to just search up online and be like this, and then have their own ideas about it. And those ideas probably aren't
Misinformation.
like right. So I think it's best to talk about it in the classroom.
I don't think so, only because the education was, like Ocean said, very rushed, very like, they didn't really take much time to explain to us what more slaves were, other than slaves, and all of the negative terms that come with that. But I think, no, I guess to answer your question, not really. I think the biggest experience I had was maybe, I can't remember what year I took whatever class it was, that my history teacher kind of went a little bit more, it was in high school, I know that. He kind of went a little bit more into it, like, oh no, this isn't all, but it wasn't enough.
I guess what it would look like, imagine yourself in the classroom as you are now, just as students, and the teacher's talking about slavery or whatever, and then I like to sit in the front, so I'll just be sitting right there, and then I'll look around and there are people looking at me. That is one of the most awkwardest, scariest things. You're like, what are they looking at me for? Did I do something wrong? Do I have something on my shirt? And then you realize it's because of the topic that the teacher is talking about. It kind of creates a like uncomfortableness within the room, within your between you and your peers, especially. It disconnects the relationship that you've also made with your teacher, because you're just like, well, you're the teacher, why isn't this comfortable? Like, we're supposed to be like in a comfortable, safe learning environment. And it's not like you feel targeted, I would say, per se, because it's not like anyone's saying or anything to me, but you can kind of tell that you're now seen as different because of this topic and the color of your skin and how the teacher is teaching it. But as a way to navigate the situation, I can't really say, because I feel like definitely as a teacher, you're just trying to do your part to make sure that you're going over the details correctly, to make sure that you're teaching the topic as accurate, hopefully as accurate as possible. So of course it's going to be stuff where you get uncomfortable, but again, that I think that has to do more with how you start at the beginning of the year, how you shape the classroom, how you introduce yourself, how you present yourself to the students, how you create that environment and atmosphere within your classroom to, once you get to those rough topics, those awkward topics, your classroom and your kids, I guess a lot of teachers call their students kids, they'll feel safe, they'll feel open to talk about their opinion or whatever questions they might have. So. You can't really control like how a student's gonna feel about a certain topic, because that has to do with like home life and all that other stuff. But definitely, I want you just to stress the importance of how this is history. We're meant to look back at it, we're meant to learn from it, and hopefully not repeat it. I feel like a lot of teachers need to stress that way students understand that this might not be my fault, but I need to recognize where I might have they benefited, where they might have benefited from the previous system and how they still do. That has to encompass also privilege as well, where they can still benefit, and also explain to them, like I said before, that this is history. We're going to learn from it. We're going to acknowledge what we can do, what we can't, and how to not repeat it.
I think in hearing what Ocean said, I completely forgot because that exact same thing used to happen to me. Like we'd be watching a movie and they'd say slavery and the whole class would go, and I'm like, what are you looking at? Like, why are you looking at me? But because at the same time I was thinking like, well, why wasn't I looking at them? But I think it's because of the way that they teach slavery and that they only try to teach it from the perspective of the slave and not, like, as if it's almost a one-sided deal when they forget to teach that someone was doing that to them. And so I think that because also in Frederick I went to a predominantly white schools, and so I think that they try not to make themselves look bad, and so they don't want to say like anything beyond the slave. Think that if they were able to teach it from the sense that like, no, this is what happened, this is what came from it, this is what happened during this time, and this is where we are today, then so many more people would benefit. Because like I said, I could have been looking at them like, why'd you do this to me? But I think for me it's a matter of not being sorry, but just being like, oh, now I know this. Now I know why there's so many differences between us, and why even like culturally, just in general, why it's so different for all of us. Because I wouldn't want like anyone to look at me and be like, I'm so sorry for what my ancestors did, because you can't fix it. Why are you apologizing? Just understand that now you have a job to improve upon what happened previously. So.
I wasn't really overwhelmed because, like I said before, it was just very like sparse details, very sugarcoating kind of the topic. But definitely as I've grown older and I've sought out this information myself, it's more like it's kind of just like a wow, like this actually happened, like people actually did this to other people, like it's a little crazy. But for me, it's not like I want to cry, it's more like I want to like do something. I want to just be active about it, let other people know, share the information, because knowledge is one of the greatest tools anyone can have. Just knowing about something can help fix another problem or give a new perspective about something. So just with the information that I learned, yes, it was overwhelming at first, but it wasn't kind of like a terrifying thing. It was a shock, but that led to me wanting to do something.
Environment is almost the most important part, and so it's how you introduce the topic. As far as that, I don't know, I'm not a teacher, but I think just creating the space where it's like, look, we're not meant to feel bad, this is just history, it is what it is. Almost like you don't feel like you have to go up to someone and say sorry, because it's not your fault, you didn't do it. And don't feel like you have to feel bad. And like, I don't know what the demographics of your classes look like, but also like, I don't know, like I think sometimes teachers do it to me where like, well, I'll be in a class, because I always sit in the front, like I don't do well in the back. And so I happen to be the kid that's always making eye contact with the teacher. Don't do what the kids do, like when you're talking about slavery and like look at the one black kid in the class, or as I know it's so like, sometimes you don't even think about it, that's why I'm bringing it up right now. So like, be aware of like eye contact and body language and things such as that. But I think also not letting them think that they have to think one thing about it, like asking like, what do you think about this? Like, what is your opinion about that? Or what could we do now to make people not feel this way, or stuff like that. Being more inclusive and things like that.
I guess as a way to, I don't know, get the students, I don't know if excited, but just more open, I would definitely just shape it as an opportunity to learn from other people's mistakes. Because the last thing like anyone wants to do is be like, you saw someone else just fall, but you're gonna do the same thing and fall too. So definitely shape it as an opportunity to learn from other people. And also, as they just said, of course, creating that open environment, welcoming classroom. And also definitely the biggest point I thought she brought up was definitely with the body language, how you're gonna present yourself to like your students. Because if you're just like kind of, I don't think convoluted is the word.
Do you mean like even though it's awkward, don't like treat it like it's different from all the other lessons. Like just act like you're teaching everything else that you teach, like even if it's uncomfortable, because that's what promotes like the comfortability amongst everyone else.
Definitely. You can really just put the words out. But yeah, just definitely treat it as if it's the same, because a lot of students in this topic, they're gonna feel like they're being treated different at that moment. So if you treat it as it's the same, then the students will think it's just the same too. It could go either way by saying, like, if you literally say the words, this may be awkward. Because some students a lot of students, well, not a lot, but some students don't come in with the mindset of this is going to be awkward. They're just like, this is going to be another part of our classroom. This is going to be a lesson that's going to be another part of history. So when you're saying it's awkward, you're kind of setting up and putting it in that student's mindset. You should feel awkward about this. When in reality, they might not. It's kind of like telling them a way that they should feel about a topic when it's really up to anyone's interpretation. It's however they want to feel. So you might say, like, this might be hard to listen to because they are a little younger, but I wouldn't use the word awkward, considering middle school is awkward.
Yeah, I think I was gonna kind of say pretty much that with a couple other things, but I was thinking, like, I've never had someone teach me history and say this might be awkward, but I've walked into math 100 times and the teacher's like, this is the hardest lesson, it's hard, and I struggled every time. And so I think about it that way, like, if you would, like, I wouldn't say that I think every time I'm like, why would you say that to me? Like, don't say that. And so in that same way, I wouldn't say this is going to be awkward. I think a way that I would approach it is, now we're going to talk about some things that may make you uncomfortable.
Right.
But also helping them to understand that when you're uncomfortable, that's when you grow. And so you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because this is the only time you're going to be able to learn it. And so I think that setting it up where you invite them to be uncomfortable, but in a positive way, is what's really going to give everyone the opportunity to grow in the topic. And also throughout the unit, like when you do talk about the things that are a little bit more heavy, just remind them to check in with themselves, because I think that a lot of times, like, ask them how they're feeling. How does this make you feel? What does this make you think about? Like, has your perspective about this topic changed? Because I think a lot of times when a lot of people are feeling a lot of heavy things, that's when they say things that aren't necessarily appropriate, but it's outside of the classroom and you don't hear it, because they're just waiting to get that, like, uncomfortable sort of feeling out, but they don't know how, and so it kind of happens out of earshot of you. And so when you invite them to do that with adult supervision, then that's going to create, I think, more of a safe space even outside of the classroom.
Definitely with what Deja said, allowing or giving your students a moment to digest the information, as well as helping them digest it. As she was saying, like, give them an opportunity to say, like, how you feel about it, what do you think about it, that, this, that, and the other.